Welcome back for another episode of Sports Zone here at ntTV. This past weekend was a great time to be a DFW sports fan, but let's start off with a little mean green action. Joining me is David Castillo and Mercedes Zaragoza. Mercedes, you took a look at this year's volleyball team. What has stuck out to you thus far this season?
So this season, something that stuck out to me was that the girls traveled to ACU to play in the Wildcat Classic. They came out undefeated, no sets lost, all of them wins, as well as Coach Palio coming out with his 400th collegiate win. Some star players on the team is Valerie Valerian. She's a sophomore outside hitter, usually leads the teams in kills, as well as aces. Barbara Tickle, outside hitter. Alicia Johnson, a freshman middle blocker, comes out with 4 blocks against Kansas State, a really, really tough team. You know, they're 6-6 going into conference play. The leader in their conference is Rice, 11-1, but you know, it just depends on how they go into conference play here.
Now, you mentioned we're about to enter conference play. You said that they've started off 500 on the year moving into this one. They did come off the tournament win down at ACU. What are the positives that you think they can take into Conference USA and maybe make a run for another championship like they had 2 years ago?
So I think one positive is that all the teams that they played pre-conference have been some tough teams. They've prepared themselves very well, because as a coach you can either look at it as, I'm going to play a bunch of easy teams come out in preseason, you know, like Rice 11-1, or you can play some hard teams, prepare your team for conference play. So Rice can come out into conference play and just totally bomb whenever they've been playing some easy teams and UNT's actually prepared. So I think that's one plus going into conference.
Do you have a prediction coming out of conference play? How well do you think this UNT women's volleyball team is going to do?
I think they will place maybe 4th or 5th into conference.
All right. We also took a look at UNT football. David, you had a chance to break down what this team did last weekend against UTSA. Is there anything, it was a good win. It was a monster win, but they only gave up 3 points to UTSA. Do you think that's a testament to the coaching staff, or did the defense finally this gel off their 2-game losing streak?
Well, what I think is important is coming off that 2-game losing streak, a lot of people probably anticipated them to come out with low energy and not to be able to be too excited about this game against UTSA. But they came out with tons of energy, were able to show that the defense was going to be the focal point of this game, and really showed the team, continue this defensive improvement, and we're going to get better as the season progresses.
Now, even Coach Luttrell has talked about this is an air raid offense. The team is completely circled around the wide receiver core and Mason Fine. However, they had almost 300 yards rushing this last game. What caused this sudden outburst from the offense? Was it the offensive line, or do you think that the running backs decided to go, you know what, this is our team too. We're not just a passing team, and we're going to be the studs for this one?
I truly think it was just from the energy that stemmed from before the game. It just kind of fueled the entire team going throughout it. You know, we just lost Rico Bussey to a season-ending injury, which is a really big hit on the receiving core. So I think the running backs took it upon themselves to really take this game and make a stamp on it. And he really did. With Trey Siggers, had 14 carries for 143 yards, and that's just great play behind Mason Fine.
All right, so they're now 2-2. They've come off the 2-game losing streak, had a monster win. Now we go back to a non-conference matchup. We're playing Houston this upcoming week. Now, going into the season, this was going to be a big matchup, but now you have 2 of their top players redshirting. They lose a game to Tulane. It's not a good loss on their resume. Do you see this Houston squad as still being a formidable opponent?
I definitely want to say that it's still very formidable. You never want to go ahead and bypass anybody throughout the season, because anybody can get a W. But losing those players does improve the chances for UNT to come away with a W, and that is a great thing looking forward to conference play and hopefully winning Conference USA.
All right, I'll pose this question to both of you. We talked about what the schedule looked like for the rest of the season for UNT, how they'd end up in the rankings. I'll pose the question to the two of you. What is your prediction for just conference play? They had a monster win against UTSA. We have Houston, but after that, it's all conference games. How do you think this team is going to turn out? Mercedes, I'll let you start.
I think they're going to turn out a little bit on top, you know, the football-wise, I'm assuming you're talking about. I think that if they win this game against Houston on Saturday, I think it's going to be a huge boost to morale. Even with the 2 players redshirting, like going in, it's going to be a big deal. It's going to send them in, you know, confident, hopefully not too confident, because you never want to be too cocky going into conference play. But I think they're going to be one of the top teams.
What's your breakdown? How you got them?
Well, I want to consider one thing. The 2 losses that we have on the season were against Cal and against SMU. both teams who are undefeated right now and just had surprisingly great wins this past weekend. That bodes well for the remainder of the season. It shows that we played both of those teams very well, and we can continue to play the rest of the schedule really well. The only team that really scares me is watching Louisiana Tech, but even then, I think towards the end of the season, we'll be on a roll and finish undefeated in conference.
Figure out some
What's your
ways.
prediction on who we're going to play in the conference championship if we can win it?
Well, we do have UAB's last game of the season, so that's going to be a big call on seeing who ends up playing for the conference. But if we can get past UAB the last game of the season, we're winning it, and I don't think anybody really stands in our way past that.
Yeah. We can figure out the whole, Trey Siggers coming in and the whole running back, core and stuff like that. I think we'll be able to figure all that out by the end of the season. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys. And we're now ready for a break. But once we come back, Alec Rapp and Michael Fishman are going to give you their takes on how the Dallas Cowboys did this past weekend against Miami Dolphins.
Call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors. What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter, male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers, we have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be.
There is no typical firefighter.
It started with the original care package and millions more like it. Passed from hand to hand, across land and sea, to help survivors in the aftermath of war. As we grew, we found better ways to help those in need. Ways to make a real difference, not just today, but tomorrow as well. Be the difference in people's lives. Help deliver lasting change at care.org.
Making is in essence telling a story. Every time I make something, I'm telling a story. When a kid gets their hands on the world and learns that they can make their fantasy play, that they can make their reality, that's power. As far as I'm concerned, everyone should feel that kind of power. So if there's something that interests you, go figure out how to do it. Go tell your own story. There it is. I want to know why you make.
Share your own Why I Make story today. Visit whyimake.org.
My late friend James Gandolfini and I got to know a lot of combat vets over the years when we were in Iraq and in Afghanistan. And it guts me to know that 22 of you are taking your own lives every day. Yeah, I play tough guys in the movies, but yous are the real tough guys. And the toughest thing to do sometimes is look for help. I want you to know, reaching out is an act of strength. And our friends at Wounded Warrior Project are here to help. You don't have to go it alone.
Welcome back, and joining me now is Alec Rapp and Michael Fishman. This past weekend, the Dallas Cowboys took on the Miami Dolphins at home, winning 31-6. Alec, what was your big takeaways from the Miami game this past weekend?
My biggest takeaway was that the Dallas Cowboys played a great second half of football. If you really look at that first half, they looked terrible. Their defense gave up 216 yards, and Dak Prescott threw, a terrible interception to Bobby McCain. But other than that, I don't know what they did going into halftime, but it just seemed after that everything clicked. They came back out, and they looked like they did the first 2 weeks. You had two 100-yard rushers for the first time since 1998, and Amari Cooper looked like a top 5 wide receiver with 6 receptions for 88 yards and 2 touchdowns.
All right, Michael, I know you're not a Cowboys fan. Are you taking this game as a positive or a negative?
Well, I'm definitely taking it as a positive. They did go against the 3 worst-rated NFL teams, but I still feel like they just got that little boost, because like you said, the first half it was kind of dreadful, but they kind of picked it up, got their momentum. Dak Prescott was throwing pretty good in the second half. So I'm not taking away their win. I'm not taking that away, but they probably could have done better in the first half. Definitely think it would have been a greater achievement if they kept the momentum around the whole entire game.
Now, Tony Pollard was an interesting pick this last draft, as we knew we were going into the offseason with Zeke wanting a contract extension. Now, both players had over 100 yards. You talked about it was the first time since 1998. Are you a little worried that they're giving too many touches to Tony Pollard and taking away from Zeke, or do you like the dual backfield?
I really do like the dual backfield because I think each guy offers a different perspective as a running back. You look at Tony Pollard, he is very similar to Alvin Kamara. He's a receiving back, he's very quick, he's very elusive. And you look at Ezekiel Elliott, he's the kind of guy that he's just going to truck you, he's going to hop you, he's going to basically make you pay. So I like what they're doing, and I've learned to trust Kellen Moore with it.
I'll pose this question to both of you. Does Dak deserve the big payday?
I mean, it's kind of hard to say because, I mean, he's still kind of playing like a rookie. He's still scrambling sometimes, but, I mean, at the end of the day, if he finishes with a positive record, I certainly do think he deserves that money.
Oh, I think over anything else, he deserves it more because of the way he's come out this season and played. He leads the NFL right now in completion percentage with 74.5%. And a funny note on that is his Taco Charlton sack, he had like 9 seconds in the pocket. And after the game, a reporter said, why didn't you just throw the ball away? His response was completion percentage.
It's an interesting joke they made, but he does lead the league in QBR rating. I know we're only 3 weeks in, but it is impressive to see what he's doing. So predictions for the rest of the year. We've got a couple tough games coming up. The Saints is going to be an interesting one because there is no Drew Brees. But after that, you have to worry about Green Bay. Then you go on the road with the Eagles. How do you think that this winning streak can continue, and how deep do you think it goes for the Cowboys?
Well, I definitely do think the Saints is going to be a very difficult game. I mean, you got Alvin Kamara. He's slithery. He can run through basically anything. Michael Thomas, he receives like crazy. But, yeah, I think that they can, if they keep on pushing forward, they can probably finish with about like 8 or 10 wins.
So who's the team that's going to stop this winning streak? Who is the team that's going to end the Dallas Cowboys' perfect season?
I definitely think the Packers. Aaron Rodgers, he's just going to throw amazing. I mean, come on, Aaron Rodgers, like Packers beat the Bears. Bears defense is outstanding. So I definitely do think they're going to stop right there.
All right, what you got? What's your ranking, or what's their final record, and who do you think is going to end the perfect season?
Final record, I think it's going to be 13-3. As I look into the next couple games, their bye week is week 8. So they have the Saints this week, they have the Jets, the Packers, and Eagles before the bye. I see no reason why we can't go into the bye week 7-0. I think our 3 losses are going to be after the bye, which will be the Bears, I think the Patriots, and the Rams. I think those 3 teams, they just find a way to pull it together at the end of the season, and of course the Patriots are always good. But other than that, I can't see any team besides the Bears and Rams in the NFC that have any shot of beating the Cowboys.
And neither one of you mentioned the Eagles as a stumbling block. Now, they have definitely come out of the gate, and they're definitely worse for wear. They are not performing up to par of what people have expected them to. What's the weakness for the Eagles right now? Because everyone predicted that they would be the one team to keep the Cowboys from winning the division.
It's definitely the receiving core. I mean, Aguilar is their main problem. He just drops passes. I mean, he needs to hit the training camp. He just got to keep on running those practices, but like he's just dropping way too many passes. Like easy receiving yards right there.
Yeah, I think you look back to the Sunday night game against the Falcons. You look at Aguilar. I mean, he had a wide open touchdown pass, hit him right in the hands, and he dropped it. There's no excuses for that, but I really think the biggest thing hindering the Eagles is Carson Wentz. So he's a phenomenal quarterback, but I don't think he has it in him to play 16 games. I mean, he through college and so far in the NFL, he has not lasted a whole season.
All right, I will say I like the Cowboys bow tie, very stylish. And coming out of the break, Garrett and Bront will do an in-depth look at the best teams in the NFL thus far this season, so stay tuned.
Everybody can make something, because I think everyone has a spark of creativity, and the reason that I have to keep making is because I don't think my life would be as fulfilling without it. If you make things yourself, that means you're not cowering in fear. You're out there taking chances. That, I think, is my way of saying I love you to the world. All right, now I want to hear why you make.
Share your own Why I Make story today. Visit whyimake.org.
When you are in space, you can't run down to the store to buy parts. You have to improvise with what you have on your mission. Making is when there is something new that was not in existence at the beginning of the day.
Okay.
It's an incredible sense of accomplishment when you have made something. That's why I make. Now I want to hear why you make.
Share your own Why I Make story today. Visit whyimake.org.
Okay, so what would you bring to my company?
What do you need?
I need problem-solving skills.
I got through high school without a car, a phone, or a computer.
No college degree, though.
Not yet, but life's taught me a lot, and I'm ready for more.
Well, you're not the typical kind of candidate that I hire. But you are exactly what I'm looking for.
Your company could be missing out on the candidates it needs most. Learn how to find a great pool of untapped talent at gradsoflife.org.
Here's your check.
Oh, you got it. You know, since I got rid of my car, I really enjoy walking.
Okay. God, no.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates.
Oh, you're home early.
You live with your mom?
That'll set your game back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Every year, 40% of all food in the U.S. never gets eaten.
40%. That's almost half the food we produce.
Food waste is a serious problem. It impacts all of us.
And it's expensive. Your family is throwing $1,500 a year in the trash.
We're working hard to put food waste on the chopping block.
And you can do the same at home.
Learn how to cook it, store it, and share it.
Just don't waste it.
Go to SaveTheFood.com.
We are 3 weeks into the NFL season, so Garrett Stringfellow and Bront Hermishmeyer took a look at their picks for the top 5 teams in the NFL thus far. Guys, take it away.
For my top 5 teams, for number 5, I'm coming in with the Baltimore Ravens for one main reason, that is Lamar Jackson. He leads all quarterbacks with 172 rushing yards, and it isn't even close for second. We all have seen the highlights he can make with his feet. You know, he's an elusive guy, but one thing that stands out to me this year is his improvement with his accuracy. He's completed 63% of his passes for 863 yards, and he spearheads an offense that leads the entire NFL with 511 yards per game. And I think their defense has been mediocre to this point. With the addition of Earl Thomas to that secondary, I think with time, the Ravens will become, one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the entire league.
Yeah, I would have thought their defense would have been a lot better this year. They looked really good last year. They added Earl Thomas, and somehow it feels like they've played worse. But I think the team in general is a lot better because of what you said, Lamar Jackson. And it helps a lot that Lamar Jackson is now able to throw accurate passes 50 yards downfield with the flick of a wrist.
Exactly. Who do you have for number 5?
Number 5, I have the Rams, and it's not a pick that I was too certain on. I was kind of tied up between the Rams and the Ravens. The thing that pushed me over the edge, though, was the Rams' defense. They have looked extremely good. Obviously, not a great game against the Redskins last night, but the defensive line, Aaron Donald, of course, they've been looking good. The big problem with the Rams for me is Jared Goff. It looks like I wouldn't say he's regressing, but ultimately he has not played at the level we have expected him to. 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 6 sacks through 3 games. So you might see a little bit of his offensive line being the problem.
I'm going to get back on the Rams more here in a second because they are also in my top 5. But for my number 4, coming in at number 4 is, the hometown Dallas Cowboys. I can't even remember the last time they were in the top 5, in the power rankings before this season, but they've gotten off to such a great start. They have played the 3 worst teams in the NFL, in the Washington Redskins, the New York Giants, and the Miami Dolphins. But can we just relish for a little bit how the offense has performed this year? It just feels like Scott Linehan just weighed this offense down for the past season or even more than that. But with Dak Prescott, the new offense coordinator in Kellen Moore has allowed Dak Prescott to play to his type of capability, his game.
Absolutely.
And Prescott leads the NFL with a 74.5% completions percentage. He leads the NFL in quarterback rating. Zeke is 4th in NFL rushing yards, and he didn't even go through training camp. He came 3 days before the Giants game. I've been very impressed with the Dallas Cowboys offense, and their defense, I think they could use a lot of improvement with their pass rush. But with the addition of Robert Quinn, he just came back for his first game as a Dallas Cowboy this past Sunday. With Robert Quinn and DeMarcus Lawrence, kind of leading that defensive line, I see this Cowboys team being able to make one of the deepest runs they have in a long time.
Absolutely. And I have a little bit more to say about the Cowboys, but I will also get to them a little bit later. And my number 4 is going to be the Green Bay Packers. They've come out, they're undefeated against 3 games against 3 good teams. Vikings, of course, a great team. Dalvin Cook running great. Beat the Bears week 1. And that game showed I think their biggest strength this year, their defense. Held the Bears to 3 points. Their defense has looked great all year. They actually went out and spent some money this offseason to build a defense that is going to help Aaron Rodgers. And I think, surprisingly, Aaron Rodgers has been their biggest problem this year. Even undefeated, Aaron Rodgers has not looked like the Aaron Rodgers of old. I think as he warms up to it, he's coming back from a little bit of an injury. But once he gets back in, gets a few games under his belt, and especially since they're winning, I think he's going to start to play better. I think the Packers are a scary, scary team.
Can you imagine them with the defense they have right now, with a healthy and a very good Aaron Rodgers? They could be very, very deadly, like you said. Moving on to number 3, I have the Los Angeles Rams. And I'm going to go quickly right here because you kind of talked about them earlier. Their defense has been awesome. Aaron Donald, Aqib Talib, Marcus Peters. They added Clay Matthews in the offseason. Their defense, in my opinion, they may not lead the NFL in defensive efficiency right now, but I think they will by the end of the season. Their defense is great, but Jared Goff and Todd Gurley have underperformed so far. But you talked about, Jared Goff's his underperformance so far this year. So I'm going to go ahead and give it to you for who's your number 3 team.
Number 3, and I'm not going to say a lot about these because obviously you've already talked about it, but this is the Cowboys. Of course, the hometown Dallas Cowboys. I think their biggest issue is going forward is going to be Dak playing consistently every week in and week out. Of course, there's inconsistencies on the defense as well, but I honestly think they're a great team and probably almost certainly will make a great playoff push this year.
And as we move into the top 2, I feel like a lot of people can agree that our top 2 is the same. I'm going to go ahead and say mine right now. At number 2, I have the Kansas City Chiefs, and number 1, the New England Patriots.
Exactly same.
Patrick Mahomes might be the greatest player of all time in a couple years, but the New England Patriots have the greatest player of all time, in my opinion, in Tom Brady. New England has a top 5 defense. They have 13 sacks, which leads the NFL, a top 2 passing offense, and that's why I have them above the Chiefs.
Exactly, same. Patriots, great year. Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes is a generational type player. I think they're going to be in the AFC Championship.
All right, that's it for us. Back to you, Jackson.
Thanks, guys. Coming out of the break, we're going to take a look at the upcoming NHL season and how the Dallas Stars are going to do with preseason action fully going.
Oh, emojis! I thought the conversation just got dumber.
Ugh, internet trolls, just ignore them.
I like you just the way you are.
I believe in you!
She's a hugger. Give her a squeeze.
Help up the hand.
Ah, there you go.
Thanks, mate.
You're killing it, Jane!
Here we go. We're gonna go out there in the rain. Gonna get wet. All right, here we go. Okay, quick. Oh yeah, yes. So much fun. Mwah. We're getting so wet.
Bye-bye.
Hi. Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help. You were probably gonna turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right.
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him.
How's your hair? Is it pretty?
Daddy.
It's pretty.
Maybe I'll say that. Maybe I'll say that.
The NHL season is just around the corner and preseason hockey is in full swing. Joining me now is Will Broderick and Amanda Batchelder. The Dallas Stars have a big retool this past season with departures like Matt Zuccarello and additions like Joe Pavelski. How do you believe the Stars are going to shape up this season, Amanda?
I think that the Stars are going to do okay, to be completely honest. I think they're going to probably exit at the second round or maybe even at the conference finals. But the problem right now is they need to step up their preseason game, even though it is only preseason. They're giving up a lot of odd man rushes that they don't need to be giving up, and they need to be putting in the effort in now because they're 2-2, which is not good.
The Dallas Stars lost an absolute heartbreaker last year in 7 games to St. Louis. They had controlled the series, but then fell in Game 6 and Game 7 at home to St. Louis, or on the road to St. Louis. Is there anything that you can take away from last season as a building block, or do you just scrap it and try and start over?
Well, absolutely. There are a lot of things you can take away from last season. I mean, you look at the play of Ben Bishop and even their backup, Anton Khudobin. You have 2 great goaltenders there. If one goes down, you still have another one. You expect still more great defense. The great penalty kill that you saw last year is again here so far this preseason. They've killed 14 out of 15 penalties. That's pretty darn good. The real question for this team, just like last year, is going to be the offense. Can they score enough goals to win them games?
And you had made mention of the goaltending. Ben Bishop had a career year last year. Coming into this one, do you think he can keep up the high-powered play, or do you think they're going to have to rely more on Khudobin in the back?
I like Ben Bishop in the net. Problem is sometimes he can be a piece of Swiss cheese. You can't have a goalie who just through the 5-hole. You got to be able to protect the 5-hole.
Last season, they allowed 202 goals, which was second best in the NHL. Ben Bishop was a big part of that. Then you get into the playoffs, and you have to fight teams who have amazing goaltender on every single game. Do you think Ben Bishop, I'll pose the same question to you, do you think Ben Bishop can keep the strength up this season?
Personally, I do. I think Ben Bishop is a great goalie. The thing I'm worried about him most is his health. How many games is he going to end up playing this year? But when he's in net, he's a great goalie. He has been throughout his career. He seemed to find that next level last year, especially in the playoffs. That Game 7 performance against St. Louis is one that should go down in goalie history. It was 52 out of 53 shots blocked, 52 straight shots blocked, and you can't win that game. But like you said, they only gave up 202 goals, second best in the NHL, and there's no reason to believe that Ben Bishop or that defense overall should take a step back this season.
With Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin being the main 2 players on this team, the push has been for them to win the Stanley Cup, and why they haven't won a Stanley Cup yet. Do you think this is the year they take a next step, maybe get to the conference finals or the Stanley Cup finals, or do you think it's going to be the same old, losing the first round, losing the second, or maybe not even make the playoffs at all?
I think this year they stand a better chance because of the addition of Joe Pavelski. Pavelski scored like 38 goals last year, and that was like the 4th time in 6 seasons that he scored over 37. And I think that's what the Stars needed, is somebody who can help score goals. That way they have that offense that'll get them to win the games.
The Stars are going to have an interesting road to start the season. They have a home opener where they play the Boston Bruins, but then they go on the road to face the defending Stanley Cup champions in the St. Louis Blues. And then, of course, a favorite of mine, they go to Detroit to play the Red Wings. Do you see them having a hot start to this season, or do you think they're going to kind of sluggishly come out of the gate? Because they do have an interesting 3-game road stand to start in their first 4.
The NHL schedule makers did not do the Stars any favors to begin this season. As you just mentioned, you go play your first 2 games are against the teams who played in the Stanley Cup final last year. Then, of course, you go to Detroit, and even though Detroit doesn't look as strong this year, you should be able to escape there with a win, at the very least a draw, and I'm sorry to break that to you. But, I mean, even then after that, then you have to go to Washington to finish up that 3-game road stand. Then you come home, and immediately you have to face the Calgary Flames, who were a 1 seed in the West last year. And then you face the Caps again. So you could be very much looking at a 1-5 start. And while it isn't hockey, you got a long season, you got 82 games. That start is going to be brutal, and they're going to have to get over it if they want to make the playoffs and make a push into the playoffs.
Do you think it's going to be a hot start, or do you worry about the beginning of this schedule for the Stars?
I think I worry about the schedule or the start of the season for the Stars because of like the same thing, playing the Bruins, playing the Blues, and everything from how the playoffs ended last year and where the Stars finished up.
All right, that will do it for us here at Sports Zone. I'd like to remind everyone watching that we will be back every Tuesday at 4 p.m. bringing you the latest sports news from around the university and DFW. If you miss a show, you can catch all of our tapings on our YouTube channel at ntTV Sports. And for more information about ntTV, go to our website at northtexastelevision.com. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll be back same time next week. And as always, stay classy, North Texas.